The more intensely you desire something, the further away it seems to move. Desire creates movement, but most of the times it is movement in the wrong direction. You reach out with desperate hands to grasp what you want, and just like trying to hold water, the harder you squeeze, the more it escapes through your fingers. This is not failure. It is physics hidden beneath layers of forgotten wisdom. You were taught to want, to pray, to wish, to focus all your energy on asking. But what if asking is the very thing that blocks the receiving? This puzzle unsettles the mind because it interrupts the most basic pattern of how people are conditioned to think about manifestation. Since childhood, you are told to hope, to want, to wait. Yet all of these states share the same vibration: lack. When you want, you reinforce that you do not yet have. When you hope, you acknowledge the absence. When you wait, you confirm that the moment of fulfillment is somewhere in the future, not here. The field, the quantum realm that responds to frequency, does not translate words, it translates states of being. And so, without realizing it, millions of people vibrate in harmony with absence while believing they are calling in abundance. This realization creates the first crack in the old belief system. If wanting does not bring it closer, then what does? The mind searches for an answer, hungry for completion because the story feels incomplete, and that is exactly the doorway to deeper truth. Ancient mystics whispered it. Modern physics now hints at it. Manifestation is not about desire but embodiment. Neville Goddard did not say wish you are. He said assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The difference is monumental. Wishing keeps you as an outsider. Assuming makes you the source. The quantum field collapses not when you ask but when you observe from within the state of having. Imagine standing before a mirror. You smile and the reflection smiles back instantly. You do not have to beg the mirror to move. You do not pray that one day it might reflect joy. The reflection has no choice. It follows the state you bring to it. The universe operates in the same way. It is not a vending machine responding to your coins of desire. It is a mirror responding to your state of being. The God state is nothing mystical in the sense of being far away. It is the most intimate truth. It is the place where you stop grasping and instead become the very frequency of the thing you seek. But here is the trap that almost no one notices. Most people hear this idea and try to fake it until they make it. They repeat affirmations with doubt still lingering in their chest. They visualize but secretly measure the absence. This is why so many feel frustration. They are told they did everything right and yet the reality did not change. But the truth is harsher and more liberating at the same time. The universe is flawless in its response. It is not failing you. It is reflecting you. If you vibrate doubt, you see delay. If you vibrate need, you see absence. The mirror never lies. So the question arises, how do you actually enter this state, the so-called God state, without tricking yourself? How do you embody when every cell in your body is screaming with lack? The answer is not in words, but in rhythm. Your body carries a key far older than thought, far deeper than imagination. That key is the breath. Because breath is the only action that is both automatic and conscious. It becomes the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the unconscious programs and the conscious intention. To shift the field, you must first shift the breath. But wait, before revealing how the breath can collapse reality, we must understand why breath has always been sacred in mystical traditions and why science now confirms its hidden power. From yogic pranayama to Christian ruach to the Hebrew word for spirit, breath has always symbolized life force. Today, neuroscience shows that controlled breathing changes the state of the nervous system, creates coherence in the heart, and influences brainwave patterns. The ancients spoke of spirit. The scientists speak of frequency. They are pointing to the same thing. The breath is not just air. It is vibration embodied. And here lies the missing piece that turns the paradox into a revelation. You cannot desire your way into manifestation, but you can breathe your way into embodiment. The paradox dissolves when you realize manifestation was never about asking the mirror to move. It was always about becoming the movement first. Every inhale is a collapse of infinite potential into the now. Every exhale is a surrender of resistance, a letting go of the grasping that keeps you trapped. In that rhythm, the impossible becomes inevitable. What most people overlook is that the breath does not lie. You can say affirmations while your chest is tight with anxiety. You can visualize while holding shallow, rapid breaths that scream survival. But the moment you shift your breath, you shift your state. And when the state shifts, the field shifts. This is the point where the puzzle starts to show its edges. The God state is not about controlling the universe, but about becoming so aligned within that the universe has no choice but to mirror your wholeness. And yet the real secret of how to use breath to step into the state remains hidden. For now, at the core of quantum physics lies one of the most unsettling discoveries ever made. Reality does not exist in a fixed form until it is observed. Heisenberg called it the uncertainty principle. Particles remain in a cloud of probabilities existing in multiple potential states at once. It is only when observation occurs that the wave function collapses and one reality takes form. In other words, nothing is solid until awareness chooses it. This is not just a dry principle for laboratories. It is the very architecture of how your life unfolds moment by moment, and yet almost no one applies this to the way they manifest their desires. Here is where the secret begins to reveal itself. The true observer effect is not simply your eyes looking at the world. It is the state of consciousness you embody while observing. You can look at your bank account from a place of lack, and reality collapses into more lack. You can look at your relationships from a place of unworthiness, and reality collapses into more rejection. The world is not punishing you. It is mirroring the frequency from which you observe. This is where Neville Goddard's teachings meet Heisenberg's physics. Neville insisted that you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not because it is a poetic idea, but because the quantum field demands coherence between observer and observation. This is what creates the mystery of the God state. The God state is not a mystical place hidden in the clouds. It is the alignment where your internal frequency is indistinguishable from the external reality you seek. When you are in that state, there is no gap between you and the thing desired. It is already done. And here's the shocking part from the perspective of quantum mechanics: that reality already exists as a probability wave. The only missing element is the collapse, and collapse is triggered by state, not by hope. This is why desire alone fails. Desire keeps you on the outside, staring at the probability wave, but never collapsing it into form. You become like a scientist who only records possibilities without daring to interact. Embodiment, however, makes you the catalyst. The universe is not waiting for your words, your vision boards, or your desperate affirmations. It is waiting for resonance. Just as a tuning fork vibrates when placed near another of the same frequency, the quantum field collapses to match the frequency you hold, and the God state is the frequency of certainty, of completion, of already being. Science shows us something profound. Coherence is the signal that the body is in alignment with the field. Heart rate variability studies prove that when the heart and brain enter a state of synchronization, the electromagnetic field they generate expands and strengthens. This is not esoteric. It is measurable. In moments of deep meditation, gratitude, or love, the body becomes a broadcasting station of coherence. The ancient mystics called this divine union. The physicists call it coherence. Both are pointing to the same doorway. The God state is a measurable shift where the inner observer and the outer probability field lock into harmony. But here is the puzzle that remains incomplete. How do you move from the chaos of everyday thought into this state of coherence? Most people try to think their way into alignment, but thought is too scattered, too noisy. The brain alone cannot stabilize frequency. It flickers between past and future desire and doubt. That is why Neville insisted on feeling, not thinking, and why science confirms that the body, not the intellect, holds the key. Because when the body enters coherence, the wave collapses with precision. The observer is no longer fractured. The God state emerges not through more effort but through resonance. Now pause and notice what this implies. If the collapse of reality is a function of state, then every moment of your life is proof of what you have been embodying. Every failure to manifest is not failure at all. It is evidence of perfect physics at work. The field is mercilessly honest, reflecting exactly who you are being. And this honesty is liberation because it means the power was never outside of you. It was never about earning the universe's favor. It was always about coherence. The God state is simply the state in which nothing in you contradicts the outcome you seek. You are no longer a beggar at the door of reality. You are the door. This leaves a question pulsing in the back of your mind. If thought alone cannot unlock the God state and desire keeps you trapped outside of it, then what is the practical gateway into coherence? The answer has been hiding in plain sight, waiting since the first moment you entered this world. The rhythm of the breath. Every inhale, every exhale is a rehearsal of collapse, a chance to align observer and observed. But how? How can breath, something so simple, become the tool that opens the door to the God state? That is the secret we are about to uncover. Stay with this thread because the missing piece of the puzzle is about to come into focus. Since the first moment you entered this world, breath has been the hidden rhythm of your existence. It is the one act that bridges the unconscious and the conscious, the automatic and the intentional. You breathe without thinking, and yet you can also direct your breath with absolute awareness. This dual nature is not an accident. It is the design of a key placed in your body, a key that opens the door between survival and creation, between probability and collapse. And the vast majority of people spend their entire lives breathing mechanically, never realizing they are carrying the very mechanism that could shift their entire reality. Science confirms what ancient traditions intuited long before language of neurons or quantum fields existed. Studies on breath show that the way you inhale and exhale regulates the autonomic nervous system. A long, deep breath activates the parasympathetic response, calming the body, lowering cortisol and creating a state of coherence where the heart and brain begin to move in harmony. From this state, brainwaves slow down, perception expands, and the electromagnetic field of the heart becomes more organized. This is not philosophy, it is measurable physics, and yet what the mystics described as spirit, prana orki, is pointing to the same phenomenon. The breath shifts the frequency of the body, and that frequency instructs the field. But why does breath hold such power in manifestation? The answer lies in rhythm. Inhalation is expansion. Exhalation is release. Together they form the most primal pattern of life, receiving and letting go. Every inhale is a microcosm of potential collapsing into form, drawing the unseen into the body. Every exhale is surrender, the dissolving of resistance and control. When you breathe consciously, you are rehearsing the very mechanics of the quantum field, potential collapsing into actualization, then dissolving again into possibility. Without knowing it, every breath you take is a mirror of the wave function itself. This is why almost every spiritual tradition centered its deepest practices around breath. Yogis designed pranayama not for relaxation alone, but to control states of consciousness. Monks whispered sacred syllables with each inhale and exhale, linking breath to vibration. Even the word spirit in Latin spiritus means both breath and life force. Across cultures, breath has always been the signature of presence. And in the context of manifestation, presence is the currency that collapses reality. Because when you are fully present, not scattered across past regrets and future fears, you occupy the God state, the state where you are whole, complete, and coherent. But here is the incomplete puzzle most people miss. Breathing in itself is not enough. You already breathe every moment, and yet you may still feel lack, frustration, and absence. The difference lies in how you breathe and what you anchor into that rhythm. Shallow breathing keeps you locked in survival. It keeps your nervous system signaling danger, your thoughts signaling lack, your state radiating incoherence. Conscious breathing, however, flips the signal. It sends a message to every cell that you are safe, whole, and aligned. And because the field mirrors state, that message begins to collapse reality differently. The missing piece is not that breath matters. It is how you use breath as a ritual of embodiment. Imagine this. You close your eyes, and with every inhale, you are not just drawing oxygen into your lungs. You are drawing the frequency of I am, not I want, not I will be, but the pure vibration of being. Every exhale then becomes a letting go of resistance, a dissolving of doubt, a surrender of the need to control how or when. In this rhythm, your body shifts, your mind slows, your field reorganizes, and suddenly you are no longer asking for reality to change. You are embodying the change. First, the mirror cannot resist. It reflects instantly. This is the true function of breath. It collapses reality by collapsing you into coherence. The scientists would say that breathing patterns alter brainwave states, guiding you into theta and gamma frequencies where new neural pathways can form. The mystics would say that conscious breath opens the channel to the divine. Both perspectives describe the same thing. You become the observer with power, not the observer trapped in longing. Breath is not simply air moving through the body. It is frequency given form. Each cycle becomes a decree, I am. And in those two words spoken silently through rhythm, the wave function bends. Still one question burns quietly in the mind. If breath is so powerful, how exactly should it be practiced to anchor the God state? Random deep breaths will not suffice. The key lies in a ritual, a specific pattern that unites the inhale and the exhale with the vibration of identity. This is the technique hidden in plain sight. The ritual that has been whispered across centuries but rarely taught in its true quantum dimension. And that is what awaits in the next step. The I am breathing ritual that transforms air into alignment, vibration into embodiment, and embodiment into collapse. Stay here because this is where the incomplete puzzle will finally be completed. Up until now, we have uncovered the paradox of desire, revealed the mechanics of quantum collapse, and exposed the hidden role of breath. But knowledge without practice is incomplete. It is like staring at the blueprint of a house and never stepping inside. The God state is not an idea to admire. It is a frequency to embody. And the doorway into this embodiment is a ritual so simple that most people overlook it. It is the I am breathing technique, a practice that unites the science of coherence with the spirituality of being, collapsing the observer and the observed into one. To begin, understand that this ritual is not about forcing the mind to believe something it secretly doubts. It is about bypassing thought and anchoring truth directly into the body. The breath becomes the vessel and the words I am become the code. With each inhale, you are not pulling in oxygen alone. You are pulling in identity. With each exhale, you are not releasing carbon dioxide alone. You are releasing resistance. The cycle becomes a silent decree that reverberates into the quantum field. I am. Not I want, not I hope, not someday. Simply I am. Here is how the ritual unfolds. Find a quiet space where you can sit or lie comfortably. Close your eyes. As you inhale slowly through the nose, imagine you are drawing the entire field of infinite potential into your body. The breath expands your chest, your ribs, your belly as if creation itself is being invited in. At the very peak of the inhale, hold gently for a moment and in your mind declare the word I. This is not just a syllable. It is the acknowledgement of existence, of presence, of being the observer. Then as you exhale through the mouth, release with a long, steady flow and whisper silently within am. This is the completion, the embodiment, the declaration that what you seek is already within you. I am. Inhale identity. Exhale embodiment. Repeat this rhythm. Inhale I, exhale am. Soon the words become more than language. They begin to vibrate through the nervous system to resonate in the cells. Each cycle reorganizes the field around you, pulling the wave of potential into collapse, matching the frequency of fulfillment. After several minutes, you will feel a shift not in thought but in state. The edges of lack dissolve, the body softens, the mirror of the universe begins to reflect differently. This is not imagination, this is coherence. You are no longer trying to convince reality to change, you are reality changing. What makes this ritual powerful is its precision. It combines breath, which alters physiology, with identity, which alters vibration. Together they remove the fracture between who you believe you are and who you truly are. Neville Goddard taught that the key to manifestation was the assumption of the wish fulfilled. This ritual makes assumption visceral. It is not acting as if with effort. It is breathing as if, being as if, vibrating as if. The frequency of I am leaves no gap for longing to survive. The God state does not need to be created. It is revealed by stripping away the illusions of lack one breath at a time. Now here is the moment of engagement. As you hear these words, let the ritual move beyond the video and into your own reality. Anchor it now. Let the declaration echo beyond silence and into community. Type in the comments I am. If you are ready to stop wishing and start vibrating, this is not just an exercise. It is a collective embodiment. Every comment becomes a frequency multiplied, a ripple across the field of everyone who reads it. In that shared vibration, the God state moves from theory into practice, from individual into collective. The power of this ritual is not in how long you practice it, but in how deeply you allow it. Even 3 minutes of coherent I am breathing can reset your state, collapse the noise of doubt, and align you with the frequency of fulfillment. And yet the longer you remain in the rhythm, the more the body learns it as its natural state. Over time, you are no longer doing the ritual. You are living it. The breath becomes a subconscious declaration of being, and the universe, mercilessly honest as always, reflects it without delay. But there is still a deeper layer waiting. Breath alone begins the alignment. Identity anchors the state. But what about the cycles of frustration that keep pulling you back into lack? How do you dismantle the old patterns that recycle failure and create resistance? That is the next step in this journey. Because once you taste the God state, the challenge becomes holding it when the world tests you. And to do that, you must see the hidden cycle for what it is and break it for good. If you have ever practiced affirmations, repeated visualizations, or spent nights asking the universe for signs, you know the sharp edge of disappointment when nothing seems to change. That heaviness, that quiet frustration is not a sign of failure. It is the evidence of a cycle repeating itself. The cycle is simple but brutal. You want, you act, you wait, and you notice nothing has shifted. So you want harder, act more desperately, wait more anxiously, and the silence of reality grows louder. This is the trap of manifesting from desire instead of embodiment. And once you see the pattern clearly, you cannot unsee it. The cycle of frustration operates because the state of lack is disguised as effort. Most people believe that the more they push, the closer they get. But in quantum terms, effort without coherence only amplifies dissonance. The frequency you transmit when you plead, when you force, when you strain, is the frequency of separation. The field reflects separation, not intention. This is why people can spend years practicing law of attraction techniques and still feel stuck. They are broadcasting from misalignment, hoping the universe will ignore the static. But the universe is flawless. It only reflects what is coherent. Here is the pattern interrupt. Your so-called failures are not evidence that manifestation doesn't work. They are evidence that it always works without fail. Every failure was a perfect reflection of the state you embodied. That is not punishment. It is precision. This realization burns at first because it places responsibility squarely in your hands. But beneath the burn is freedom. Because if you are the one creating the cycle, you are also the one who can break it. So how is the cycle broken? Not by trying harder. Not by adding more rituals or stacking endless techniques. The cycle is broken when you shift identity from lack to embodiment. When you live the state instead of chase the outcome. This is where the metaphor of the radio becomes powerful. A radio does not beg the station to play the song it loves. It does not plead for permission. It simply tunes to the frequency and the song arrives. You too are a receiver. The God state is the frequency. Frustration only arises when you keep turning the dial to stations of doubt and lack, while insisting that the universe should play a different song. The moment you tune correctly, the music flows without effort. Science echoes this truth. Heart-brain coherence studies reveal that frustration generates chaotic signals, irregular rhythms in the electromagnetic field of the body. This incoherence scrambles communication between your biology and the field around you. Gratitude, presence, and identity, on the other hand, generate smooth waves, harmonized frequencies that project clarity into the field. The universe does not resist you. It mirrors the clarity or the chaos you radiate, which means frustration is not the end of the journey. It is a signal, a diagnostic showing you exactly where incoherence has been ruling. And here is the most liberating twist. Even your moments of failure were sacred practice. Each delay, each missed outcome, each disappointment was proof that the field is listening with total precision. The lesson was hidden in plain sight. The God state does not require you to erase the past or deny the moments of struggle. It asks you to reinterpret them. What if your failures were not evidence against you, but evidence that you were powerful enough to collapse reality? Only you were collapsing it from the wrong state. Suddenly, frustration transforms into feedback, into guidance, into opportunity. But this leaves one final question. If the God state is already available, why do people struggle to remain in it? Why does it feel like slipping sand held for a moment only to be lost again? The answer is that most people still see the God state as something to reach for, rather than something to live in. They return to wanting, to grasping, to waiting, and each time they do, they re-enter the cycle of lack. Breaking the cycle means no longer dipping in and out of embodiment. It means allowing embodiment to become identity. You do not visit the God state. You live there. And this brings us to the final revelation. Because if the God state is not something to reach, but something to inhabit, then the true work is learning how to remain there permanently. Even when the external world tests you, that is the closing key. The invitation into a life where manifestation is no longer an event, but a natural rhythm. Stay here because what comes next is the vision of living permanently in the God state, where every breath, every thought, every step carries the vibration of I am. The God state is not a temporary high. It is not a fleeting moment reached during meditation, only to be lost when life gets complicated. It is a permanent identity, a state of being that transcends circumstance. To live in the God state means no longer negotiating with reality, no longer waiting for proof before you believe, no longer dipping in and out of coherence depending on external outcomes. It is to stand rooted in the truth that what you seek has already been given, that the field is not withholding anything from you. That creation responds to who you are, not what you beg for. Living here requires a shift in how you see yourself. Most people define their lives by outcomes. The job they have, the money they earn, the relationships they keep. But outcomes are only reflections. They are delayed feedback loops of past states. When you live in the God state, you flip the order. You no longer wait for the reflection to smile before you do. You embody first and reality follows. You breathe coherence. You walk coherence. You speak coherence, and soon your life becomes a mirror too radiant to deny. This is where both mysticism and science converge. Mystics call it surrender. Scientists call it resonance. The language is different, but the truth is the same. Coherence sustained over time rewires both your biology and your destiny. The neurons of the brain fire in new patterns. The heart radiates stability, and the electromagnetic field around your body becomes a clear signal of completion. The quantum field, mercilessly honest as always, reflects back that signal. The God state becomes not something you practice, but something you are. But permanence does not mean perfection. Challenges still arise. Life still tests. The world still shifts. The difference is that in the God state, you are no longer thrown out of alignment by circumstance. Instead, you respond from embodiment. Breath becomes your anchor. Presence becomes your foundation. You may wobble, but you do not collapse back into lack. You remain tuned to the station of I am, and the music of reality continues to play in harmony with you. This is why every step of this journey matters. The paradox of desire showed you why wanting fails. Quantum mechanics revealed the observer's role. Breath unveiled the hidden key. The I am ritual gave you the practice. Breaking the cycle of frustration opened the freedom to choose differently. And now the vision is clear. You were never meant to chase outcomes. You were meant to embody the God state, not once, not occasionally, but as a way of life. So the invitation is this: begin now. Every inhale, every exhale, every declaration of I am is not a ritual you perform, but a reality you live. When the field sees coherence, it reflects coherence. When you live as the wish fulfilled, the mirror of the universe has no choice but to align. You are no longer waiting at the door. You are the door. And as more of us step into this frequency, the ripple expands beyond the individual. It becomes a movement, a community, a collective embodiment of the God state. Because the God state is not a secret to visit. It is your birthright to inhabit. And the moment you claim it, not with words, not with hope, but with being, everything begins to shift. Not someday, now.